Going live. I think we're live. Should be live. Should be good to go. Should be good to go. Yeah, okay. All right. Today's off. We're off schedule. We're on a Tuesday, so not the usual scheduled programming. Just doing maybe a 30-minute deal or maybe a full hour. I'm not really too sure how this is going to work out. But I woke up this morning, and I think every stream I've done for the pretty much since I started, I've been coming on and talking about how I'm like kind of sad and depressed about some stuff going on in my life, and I'm like right on the edge of feeling like I'm like moving past it, and it's been really tough. But I think I'm like right there, and one of the really helpful things for that has been the stream. I've always like. I've been having a ton of fun doing this, and even though no one's watching, I don't even give a fuck. I've been having a ton of fun doing this, and I always feel better, like when I'm doing it and like when I finish. I feel like I'm like my thoughts are just straightened out a bit more. My brain's like playing less tricks on me, kind of a thing. So I kind of woke up today feeling, this thing hit me a little hard, and like every morning it's been tough. And like kind of just wanted to stream just to like talk about something else, get my mind away from this thing that's been bugging me. Just going through some sad times right now, but shit happens, and I think that we'll be better for it in the end. Actually, I know we will, like, for sure. I'll be we'll be pretty good, but yeah, it's just tough right now. But regardless of that, today I want to talk about something that I've experienced, or really kind of am experiencing and have been for the last year or so, which is what to do or how to deal with losing your passion for coding. And this is not like some of my prior streams where I'm talking about something where I already know the solution, or I can like offer wisdom. This isn't really something that I have a lot of wisdom to offer, so I just kind of want to talk about it and see what comes up. And I'm feeling like maybe talking about my own experiences with it will be helpful. And then also what I'm thinking of, like what my plan is for moving forward. So when I first started programming and writing code 3 years ago, I talk about this all the time. I loved it so much. It was like a reason to get out of bed in the morning, honestly. It was like everything. And when I got my first job, I was the same. I was so hungry, and like I remember coming home and like going to sleep and like thinking that I could not wait to wake up the next. I'm not even kidding. This is crazy now, but I couldn't wait to wake up the next day and go to work and write code. Like I'd be excited about like a ticket I had or a feature I'm working on. Like no joke, I was so excited to learn this shit and just to do it that like I was like excited to go to work and to start my computer and like start writing code and like making whatever, solving these tickets or doing these tickets and like writing these features. I was like fucking so into it, and that lasted the entire course that I was at Principal. I talked about this in the video about burnout that I posted, but eventually what got to me wasn't even like the act of writing code. It was all the office bullshit and the fact that I felt like I was not making the amount of money that I thought that I had deserved, and I got really bitter about that. And then the exact same thing played out at my last job. And when those things happened, they really, really ate at me. And I think that at some point in my at some point at the end of my first job and at the start of my second, that hunger, that passion that I really had just kind of dissipated. And it's still there to some extent. Like even when like at my last job, 8 months after all this, or like not maybe even 9 months after I started losing my like passion and shit, I still gave talks at like tech meetups and I did stuff, but it definitely wasn't nearly the same level that it was. And I was just in general like I don't know. It might have just been, and this might be, like I said, I'm just gonna be working through this shit because I really don't know off the top of my head. But I kind of wonder if maybe my second job is responsible for it too. The code that I was writing there, like that was such a hard job. That was such a hard company to work for because their product is so complicated and all their software is so complicated that I think that that also might have had something to do with it. I felt so ineffectual at my last job. I felt like it was so frustrating. I felt like I had so much more to do and offer, and like I wasn't even given a chance. One of the really telling things was when at some point, the company basically leaked every... Fuck, I don't know if I could say this, but how can I phrase this? So in my last like couple months at this job, I was talking to one of the other front end developers, one of the other front end engineers, and I was just talking about myself, and he basically said that he had found out that at some point that my title was like a junior developer, and he thought that I had been a senior engineer the entire time I'd been at Recurly. This was a senior front end person who had thought that I was also a senior front end person the entire time we were working together, which wasn't true at all. I remember that sort of reinforced my feeling of like, what the fuck can I, like, why am I not making the same amount of money that you are, or like all these other senior people are? And it was weird that like really affected my passion, my like how much I like coding. I think that like maybe I just let it get to me to some extent, and to like I still do love writing code for the most part. It's also not as challenging. I might have cut off my last thought there before completing it. Another side note. Firstly, I know all these streams have been rambling. Like there's so many tangents. It is what it is. But I guess that's my style. But this is the first morning I'm doing this without coffee too, so it'll probably be a little different vibe. Woo. But I'm just surprised that like how much the stuff outside of code affects your opinion about code. It's really weird to me. You would think that like if anything it would drive me further into just like putting my head down and wanting to write code more, but it didn't. It's done the opposite. But yeah, my last job I just felt like I was never really given a chance. It was really frustrating. There's no reason why. I felt like it was just frustrating. I just wanted more opportunity to like branch out and do stuff, and the company just like the opportunities just didn't come, and they just kept not coming. Or when they did come, actually that's not even true. There were times when things did come to me that I like, man, I remember one project I was told I was given something to like fix. Basically it was like an app in the edges of our system that no one really knew about, and it was like written by contractors way back when or whatever, and the contractors fucking sucked. They wrote terrible code, and then they got like fired, they got cut, and nobody at the company knew anything about how this app worked or anything. So it was basically given to me to like fix a couple issues that were going on in it, et cetera, et cetera. And I was told when I was given this thing that it would be a really good opportunity to like get exposure and like, you know, get some street cred at the company and all that shit. And just was like I went in and I crushed it. Like I did everything. I like handled the shit out of everything within that, and then never heard anything about it again. Man, I was just so frustrated with stuff at my last company, like just not being recognized and not having like the opportunity to do cool shit or the things that I wanted to. It was so frustrating, and I think that stuff weighed on me too. But my last job was just so hard to work for also. I think at some point in that second year, things just started to change. I also think, and this isn't something I've talked about too much, but I definitely should. But when I was in Iowa at my first job, and after my first year when I expected to get a big promotion or a raise and did not, that really changed. That was like that changed a lot for me. That made me realize I mean, it didn't, because I did the same thing at my second job, but it made me realize or start considering that like spending all your time and energy on work is not good. It's like I remember being in Iowa feeling, and to some extent, I still feel like this. I definitely have some really nice memories of being there, and I met some wonderful people. My ex girlfriend is like one of my all time favorite people, and she's great. But I just remember like feeling like it was a year and a half long business trip to some extent, where I was just working all the time, and like by the end of it, I had come to the conclusion that it wasn't worth it. That basically, like I had a lot of cool things going for me at the time, and I was like on this path to what felt like a very normal sort of Americanish kind of like dream sort of lifestyle of like married kids, job kind of shit. And I just remember thinking that I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't give up. And maybe it's just like a young man's type thing, or like I just wasn't at that point in my life where I was ready to like settle down in Iowa and like do just be at principal for the rest of my life. I remember thinking that there's a chance that this is like I'm looking down the barrel of the next like 30, 40 years of my life basically by staying here. And I had forgotten the fun. Like I hadn't partied, I hadn't really gone out. I didn't really have too many friends when I was there. And not that I had too many here either, I suppose, but I think more so. And I just felt like I was like living to work instead of, whatever the working to live, blah blah blah. So that was when I started looking for new jobs. I would specifically like it's got to be in a city that there's going to be some fun shit going on. Hence New Orleans, and it's been a great move for me overall. But I mean, maybe it's been I don't know at this point, but there's been a lot of ups and downs, honestly. But I do remember like that feeling of if you're I don't know there's something about that like. You gotta have like a balanced life. You can't just be somebody who's working all the time and that's all you do. Or I don't know, maybe you can. Maybe if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But like for me, I wanted to like have all these other experiences, and do all these other things and stuff. And when I was working 8 hours a day plus like the 2 hours on the side, like 10, 11-hour days every day, and then spending the other time with a girlfriend or like doing some other stuff. Like I felt like it was too early for me to be like doing this. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But I just felt like there was like more. And so yeah, moved to New Orleans. But when I started to feel that way of like this feeling that I had accomplished a lot of the goals that I wanted to within like my career. I was making more money than I thought I'd make in Iowa, my first job. Not even like I make a lot more now. But like I was like very content with everything, but it felt like there was shit that was missing. And then yeah, realized that like maybe code can't solve all your problems. But I think like I realized that like you can't cover up really the parts of your life that you're not attending to by just working more. Sorry, I got a message on the side here. And that was, yeah, so moved to New Orleans. But I think that the reason I'm talking about this is because I think that this also contributed towards me like losing my like passion for coding. I think that like realizing that there's other stuff that I wanted to do, and then all like I don't feel this way too much, but I do feel like spending all day inside a like corporate office for like 5 days a week for 8 hours a day is like I felt like I was just wasting life. Like I was just wasting time at this like trading time for money. I guess everybody does, but it was just very frustrating for me. I just wanted more. But then, yeah, like at that time, coding just sort of fell away. I don't know what it is now, and I still love it. I still do it on the side. I'm still doing this. Like, there's still things that I and I still love my job and everything, but it's not like it was. I'm not like right now I have a ton of code to write, but I'm not like this is something that when I was at principal I'd be fucking pumped on. Like I would be fucking couldn't wait to start shit. Sorry, I'm just answering a message right now. Man, definitely feeling pretty tired. But yeah, I, like just the passion that I had is just not there, and yeah, I have a bunch of code to write, not even excited for it. And that's generally how I felt for a while. Like I haven't. There's no coding thing that I've done for work that I've been excited about in a long time. The one thing, actually, that's not entirely true. There was something for my last job. At my last job, they did this like little initiative. There's like very similar to a hackathon where like every quarter or biannually they'd give like engineers a couple days to like do their own shit. And I think I talked about this at some point, and I made a really fucking dope thing for that, and that was super fucking fun to work on. I mean, probably because I just had full control over everything, and that could be it too. Like, my job now isn't that bad, but my last job was really. The other thing that was really frustrating about it is just there was so much like supervision for me that like I didn't feel like I owned anything I did. That was so fucking frustrating. And that was like org wide. It wasn't even one. It wasn't even like one person who was doing this or anything. It was like I don't know what the fuck it was, but like my first 3 months at this company, not even 3 months. I'd been there for like 3 weeks, and I'd been given a ticket to do something for this team. And no problem. I talked to like the other front end developer about it. He tells me, gives me path forward. I didn't really need that. I could figure it out on my own, but fine. I did it the way that he suggested it. And then he came back, like it took me 2 days or whatever. And then I like submit it for code review. And then he came back, and he did the same exact thing that I did just in his free time on his own. And just like, I was writing on top of something that existed. He just refactored and rebuilt the whole thing. Which is that's so fucking stupid to do for so many reasons. But it definitely left me feeling like, bro, what the fuck are we doing? Like, why did y'all hire me? Why am I even doing this? And then to top it all off, they didn't use his code. They used my code because his like missed certain features and test cases and shit. But even the fact that he was doing it, I was like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it was such. I thought it was just such a weird thing to do. Actually, I think he got into like he did. I think he got some discipline action from it, just because it's such a fucking. Not only is it shitty for me, but it's really just shitty for the company to have him spending time doing something that somebody else, like, it's redundant work. It's really fucking stupid. But there were a number of things that would happen like that were like, by the end of my time at Recurly at my last job, I was like, I really just didn't care, to be honest. I did not give a fuck. Everything I did was going to get, like, so much of what I did would end up getting rewritten anyway for no reason. Or, like, I don't know. There's all this other bullshit around it. But I think all that stuff also, like, contributed to me feeling like, fuck all this noise for code. Like, that was really I remember being so fucking I still am. Like, when I think about it, I get frustrated. And it's not like listening to me say it. If I heard somebody else say what I was saying, I would assume that they weren't right. Like, the code they were writing wasn't very good, or like there was a reason for it. But not the case. That just isn't true in this case. I promise you, that's not the case here. This is like something different. Something to do with the company culture. I think that I don't know. It is what it is. I'm whatever. Make peace with it. But I think that like it definitely contributed to me losing my love for coding to some extent, and then it just kind of over time kept on, like, it just sort of built up, and now it's I wouldn't say it's hard for me to sit down and code. Depends on what it is. It is hard for me to sit down and arbitrarily just write code. I'll say that. Like there has to be a larger vision or something for me to get into it. The other thing is, this is something I was thinking of, the the stuff that challenged me when I first started out is not the stuff that challenges me anymore. And so much of the code that I write now isn't very challenging in like a creative or like it's not that hard. Like most of the time the code I write now is like I know what to do. I just have to just do it basically. Like I know exactly what this is going to look like when it's done. I know exactly the code that needs to be written, but we just have to do it. And like the implementation of doing it to me, because I feel like it's the same, it's like building something I've probably already built very similar shit dozens of times before to whatever I'm being asked to do. And it just feels like doing the same thing. And I think that that's actually a pretty, like that might be a bigger contributor than all of the other stuff that I'm thinking of. Like I really, really don't feel like anything is like, if it is challenging for me, it's challenging in an annoying way, or it's challenging because it's like just a lot of work, but it's not like, I don't feel like I need to like sit down and figure shit out. I basically I could like look at a ticket almost pretty much any time. I could just look at a ticket and know what the fuck to do or what the issue is and how to fix it like pretty fucking quickly. But the implementation can take longer, especially when you're dealing with like shitty dev environments or apps that are like fucking screwy and all that stuff. The implementation can take longer, but if you know the higher level shit, I almost feel like it's like taking a math test and you see a question, the answer to the question, it's really fucking easy, but you have to sit down and write it out for like 20, like it'll take you like 15 or 20 minutes to write up. You're like, oh fuck, I know what to do. Jeez. And you just keep writing and writing and writing and writing, and you're like, oh, it's almost boring. That's how I feel when I write code now. Most of the time. Or I'm just really frustrated at something dumb. That's really common too. So if those are those are like the reasons that I can think of that have kind of brought me here. And I know that I still love code. Like deep down, I still love it. And there's times when I'm writing code and I still fucking dig it. And I love my job. Like I love what I do for a living. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Well, there's no fucking way. But it just feels like now what do you do to get back there kind of a thing. Or so from where I'm standing, where it's like, okay, so passion is gone. What do you do? I could see it being in two directions. Basically, how do you recover the passion that you used to have? Or alternatively, what's the next thing? Maybe for me, and this is what I'm thinking, is that intensely learning about code has sort of run its course. I feel very comfortable, especially in like the domain of front end. And now I need like a new challenge. And I'll talk about what I think that's going to be in a second. I think that that's a possibility for me where it's just like, this is the natural course of things. Like we've been doing it it's not like I just started coding yesterday. We've been doing it for 3 years. I mean, it's a good chunk of time. So it's not like it's totally it's not like it's like 2 weeks or something. It's not like totally shocking, and it's pretty expected probably. But yeah, it's just I don't know, just kind of dealing with it. But so the other idea is like, okay, then how, if you don't want to move on to the next thing, which is probably what I'm going to do. Option 2 is how do you get that back? And I think that just judging from myself, and again, this is not me. I don't have the answers for this one. This is just me talking. So all of my answers here could be off base. But I think to get your passion back, the first thing is make sure you like your job, probably. That if you're getting slammed with shit every fucking day, you're going to hate it pretty quickly. So I think like, okay, let's just rule that out, basically. Let's say it's not your job. So what else can you do? I think that like part of me wants to say to give yourself some space, because this is kind of like similar to what I was talking about in the grinding video that I posted last week. If every time you sit down to write code, by the time you have to like grind and force yourself to do it, and by the end you fucking hate it, and like you have so much resistance and you as you're doing it, but you continue to do it anyway, you're just like building this up so that now the next time it's going to be even harder. Like your brain is like learning that not only does it not like this, it really doesn't like this. You're reinforcing it by like forcing yourself to do this thing. So you want to like anything, I think the way to do it is probably to make it fun. And this is like that's like a light bulb moment for me to talk about how to get better at learning, but as like a stream topic. But like, if you lose your passion for coding, you want to find something fun to work on. You like make a side project for something and like have complete ownership of it. Do whatever, like literally do whatever you want. Don't limit yourself. Even if you're a front end person, if you have some interest in like, you know, some database technology or something that's like totally in another part of the stack, you just have like a vague interest in it, go pursue that. I think that is also a really good way to like get it back. Do the things that you're excited to do, not the things that you feel like you're being forced to do. So find whatever it is. If there's a language you want to learn for whatever reason, poke around at that. If there's a side project you want to build, do that. Start a stream channel. There you go. I think that like finding a way to make this stuff fun is going to solve a lot of the problems, honestly. But to be fair, like at a certain point, if you lose your passion for coding, you might not get it back. Like maybe you just, like anything else in life, like nothing is permanent, everything changes, and like you're Jesus Christ. Everything changes. Nothing is permanent. So you're gonna go through your like ebbs and flows and shit for this stuff. That's natural. That's gonna happen. And you might reach a point, like in a relationship, you might reach a point where like after a certain period of time, people just get like, it's just not right for you anymore. So then you want to think about what the next thing is, and that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I feel like right now, technically very sound. There's not a lot of front end stuff that I'm like, if I was given a thing, I couldn't figure it out for myself. I can't really think of much stuff like that. The only thing I could think of is like, if I went to, what's like a good example of some crazy ass shit? Google Maps or something. Start working on like the Google Maps team for their front end rendering canvas bullshit. Something like that. That's a whole nother world. That's very different. And that like, I probably can't do that. But the vast majority of like normal software development, front end development, I can handle very capably. So now thinking about like what the next thing is, and for me, definitely this channel. Like this channel has been dope. Definitely going to keep doing this. And yeah, my expectations are really fucking low for where this is going, but I'm definitely going to keep doing it. But the other one, I think I mentioned this in another stream, is move towards management. And now that the more I hear myself talk and the more I think about this, one of the reasons I don't like coding anymore, I like it less, especially like I like it on my own, but almost at work I don't like it. And I think part of it is because writing code is usually, this is kind of weird, but it's kind of low impact. Like if you're writing code, there's really only so much you can do. You don't have a lot of influence in the organization, probably. You don't like, even if you're like a very good senior engineer, you're kind of like low impact. I think like you don't have as much, you don't do as much for a company as say like a director level person who doesn't even write code. They just talk about how to manage people and shit. But those are the people who are, I think, and again, this is also something that could be totally wrong, but this is just the vibe that I get, is that like management level stuff and director level stuff is where real decisions get made, where you can really impact organizations. And I think that that's ultimately the reason that I don't like coding for jobs anymore, is because a lot of code that you write, or that I write, or that anyone's going to write at a job, is going to be pretty low impact. Like a lot of the stuff you do is going to be like, hell, it's pretty fucking common for developers to write features over weeks, months, even years for things that never even make it into production. Like they never even get there. And and that for reasons outside of your control. And I'm thinking about stuff like that, and like, all like I want to. For me, like I think that I can add a ton of value to an organization at a leadership level. Like I see so many mistakes being made by leadership at every job I've been in. Tech people just aren't really good leaders, to be totally fucking honest. They're rare. I've seen a couple who are I've seen a lot who are pretty good. I don't think I've ever had a manager who I would say was like a great leader. I don't think so. I think that a lot of, honestly, if I'm being really honest, it's interesting because yesterday I was thinking about how I've only had great managers, and that is true from one angle. I think a lot of the managers I've had have basically just flailed the whole time at their jobs, honestly. And I think part of it is because I think that there's a lot of reasons for that, but and it's anecdotal too. Like, not every manager is going to flail, but I feel like most of my managers flail quite a bit. And are like at my last job for my last team, my managers, I had two at the time. I had one, and then he left and somebody else came in. They were very beholden to the senior engineers on the team. So whatever those guys said, that was like the direction we were taking. And to their defense, within the nature of this team and this company, they didn't have a choice. Like, those two engineers I'm talking about were like superstar engineers who were like some of the first engineers at this 10-year-old company. They were like woo really fucking good. They're like, engineers that people should strive to be. They're phenomenal. But as a manager, you can't. I think that like I don't know if spineless is such a mean, dickheaded word, and that's not really what it is. But they always deferred to them for everything, and I think that it's definitely to the company's detriment, no doubt about it. Those guys are very smart, but they can't. They've been at the same company for a long time at that point, and they lacked a flexibility, I think, and they also just like had trouble letting go of shit. So like all the things that they wrote were kind of like their babies. Man, but yeah, I think that being like in a leadership position is where you can actually make bigger impacts at a company or at a software organization. And I think that is why one of the core reasons I don't like coding anymore, or I like it less, especially with jobs, is because you're like limited in your role. Even if you're very senior, you're still limited. Whereas like a director level manager person, you can really like you can do some real damage at a company. You could like really change the culture and make companies like much more effective. So dabbling with that idea, I also think I'd be good at it too. Actually, I know I would be. I would like a front end. The dream job for me right now, if I could like pick, would be to manage like a front end team of 10 to 20 engineers at like a big-ish, medium-sized company. Or even if it's like 4 or 5 engineers at a smaller company, I would do that too. But yeah, front end managing position would be like, I think I would crush it. It's weird because every company I've been to really struggles with organizing front end resources, which is kind of interesting. They all just struggle with it for some reason. Well, that's it. 36 minutes in. That's pretty much my full thoughts on this stuff. Not totally, but more or less. Gonna call it, get some breakfast. But I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what we'll be talking about yet, but if you're watching, thanks for watching. Otherwise, I will